recording here. Can you read that okay?
Yeah.
And let me shrink this down so I can bring up my Windows Journal. And let me close out everything that I don't need open. Alright, hold on. Alright, so if x plus n or x plus 3 equals n, then what does 2x plus 6 equal?
Wouldn't it be 2n?
Yeah, and you did it the method that's the quickest, right? Which is to recognize that this is twice this. As opposed to doing it the more difficult way, which would be, well, x equals n minus 3, and then if I substitute that in, like that, I get 2n. So I get to the same answer, but a lot of these problems, they put an easy way to do it quickly a lot of times. You just have to recognize it. And always take a brief moment to see whether or not this expression is related to this expression in any way. About number 2.
It would be 8b minus 2ac.
About number 3.
It would be negative 4, 17, 31.
Number 4.
It would be G.
Good. In other words, you take the total price and divide by the number of DVDs that she had. Okay, let's go to the next page. 468. Okay. And you can use, do you have a calculator in front of you?
No.
Why don't you get one? Because you're going to be allowed to use a calculator on these, so when we practice, you should have a calculator.
All right. Let me grab it. All right. I have it.
This is actually one of the few problems that a calculator would save you a few seconds.
So it would be C, 7, and then 3/4.
Correct. Did you use your calculator and you got 7.75?
Yeah.
Okay. As long as you know how to convert those decimals to fractions, that's fine. Here, this is kind of blurry. Let me write it out. We got 3 to the x power equals 31. Then what does 2 to the x power times 2 equal?
I'm actually not sure how to do this.
What's x equal to? Let's solve this equation on the left.
X is equal to...
Is it going to be a decimal number, or is it going to be an integer, do you think?
It's going to be an integer.
Has to be an integer. Because if it wasn't, in other words, if they gave you the following problem, 3 to the x equals 79, now x is going to be an irrational number, and the only way to ever solve for x is to use logarithms. Okay? And logs are not a part of the ACT test. So if you spot a problem that you think has to have logs, then no, you're missing an easier way to do it. In other words, we know this answer is going to be 2, 3, 4, or 5. 3 to what power is 81?
Three to the fourth.
Okay, so x is 4. Now substitute that on the right, and what do you get?
$32.
Okay. Yeah, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that if they're never going to give you a problem like this to make that be 80. Because now, in order to solve this, I got to use logs. I got to take the log of both sides, and then I bring the x down here, and then I divide both sides, so x ends up being this very irrational number. Certainly not an integer. And knowing that the only way to solve an exponential equation is using logs is useful to know. Because when they give you an exponential equation, you know there must be a better way to do it. In other words, we can't use logs because you don't have to know them for the ACT test. So there must be a different way to do this, and that different way requires that to be an integer. That number is either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay. So what's the perimeter of this garden?
170.
Okay. Apologize for the lousy quality of my pictures here. I did this with my old camera.
Would this be a calculator problem?
Well, here's the function. It's not really a calculator problem. It's more of how do you solve it. In other words, when x equals minus 6, what am I going to do?
Plug x in.
Okay, so tell me how to write it.
So 6 squared.
Hold on. X is negative 6.
Oh. So
the best way to do these is to not to try to take any shortcuts.
okay.
In other words, I want to write it like this. That way there will be no possibility of confusion. Never take a shortcut by simplifying it first. Now simplify. Now let's remove most of the parentheses. What do we get?
It'd be...
Well, let's remove all of the parentheses.
Will it be negative 36
Okay.
plus 12 plus 21?
Okay. Now you can use a calculator if you want. In other words, it wasn't really a calculator problem. The key to this problem was, could you get this step right there? And it's real easy to make a mistake here. and get your minus signs wrong. And that's why I suggest never changing this step. Just fill it straight in for everywhere you see X, put parentheses around it, and then simplify. So next step.
It'd be 4/3 pi, or equals 4/3 pi 3 cubed, or 27.
Hold on. R is 2.
Oh,
In other words, we don't want to do it differently there either. In other words, let's make sure we write this step, whereas all we do is plug it in, just like the previous problem. Now, if that potential mistake that you almost made, you're not going to see that answer on there. Yes, you are, actually. No, you're not. 36 pi would not be on there. Oh, yes, it might be. 96 might be close to 36 pi, although no, not really. So here's the key. If you would have made that mistake by plugging in 3, you're going to get an answer that's not on there, and that's a big red flag that you need to notice, and it tells you that you've made a mistake somewhere. Well, 2 cubed is 8, so this is 32 over 3 pi. Now use your calculator. Let's come up with a close answer to that. In fact, I don't need a calculator. It's got to be D. Look at all the answers they give you.
Yeah.
Do they give you any, is there any chance that 34 isn't the right answer? No, because we know the right answer has to be some number greater than 32. Because this pi is 3.14, almost cancels out with that, plus some change, so our answer has to be a little bigger than 32. Nothing qualifies except D. And that might seem like a simple thing given the fact that they allow you to use calculators, but that's why I tell most of my students that calculators really don't help that much. Where it looks like it's going to help, you end up not needing it. What do you get for 10? And 10, you basically just have to go through each answer and see if it matches what you started.
So K.
Uh-huh.
That's K. It's 2 parentheses 2C minus D.
Correct. Can you read that one, number 11, okay?
Yeah.
This one also has a shortcut.
Would be also 75 divided by 5. So 15. I got 125.
Correct. In other words, you didn't, yeah, you did it correctly. All right, let's go to the next page. Oh, finally something that's a little more legible. Now, this one's a little different than the previous one. The previous one, we had to actually go through every answer. Well, you don't have to do that on this one. In other words, you can simplify this directly. And that's the way to go. It's more efficient than checking each of these 5 answers. So if you simplify it directly, what do you get?
5x plus y.
G. And it saves you time from having to do F, H, K. Which of those equations is not the equation of a line?
E?
Did you say E?
Yeah.
Correct, because there's an x squared. If you have an x squared and a y, that means we're looking at a parabola. Hold on.
It would be G.
Good. Have you ever taken a practice one of these tests?
Nope.
See how you score on them?
No.
You're doing pretty good. I think you're going to do pretty good on them. I do. I mean, obviously they start out with the easier problems, and when we get to the last set of 30, they'll be a lot harder. But, you know, I hear an echo for some reason. I wonder why I hear an echo. Does my audio sound any different to you?
No.
No? I'm in a different room. I moved my computer upstairs. And it's like I feel like I'm in an echo chamber.
I don't know. When you pull away from your microphone, it echoes a little bit. But if you're closer to your microphone, it doesn't echo.
Okay. All right. So number 15.
Is it B? No. I'm actually not sure.
Well, let's look at B. If this were true, what are my 2 solutions?
-5, -6.
Okay. So if my 2 solutions are 5 and 6, what must I be looking for here?
Negative.
Okay. So which answer?
D.
All right. And 16. 1 over x plus 1 over x minus 1. How do I evaluate that with x being equal to 1/2? The best way to do it is just like the other problems. Write it out with everything substituted and then simplified. So what's the next line? What should my next line look like?
1 over 1/2 plus 1 over 1/2 minus 1.
Okay. What's that equal to? How do you divide by a fraction?
Multiplied by the reciprocal.
Okay, so what's that equal to?
2. So, K.
Uh-huh. All right, now they're going to get a little bit harder. Hold on. So they're telling you the diagonals intersect at this point right here.
Alright.
And point M is at -1, -4. So they want to know what are the coordinates of O. So M is -1, -4.
So it would be 11, 2.
Good. Good. Notice the only one you actually had to solve for was the x coordinate, right?
Yeah.
In other words, once you got the x coordinate, there's only one answer on there for that. So it has to be 11, 2. You didn't even have to do the work to solve for the y coordinate. They do that a lot too, because they want to reward people who know how to effectively go through these things faster. You don't want to ever do any work that you don't have to do. So tell me the equation that's going to tell me my answer.
So would be
25 times what?
7.
No,
Or
9 cents for the first 25 miles.
0.09
Okay.
plus 0.07x.
Not x. We know what, in other words, if he runs 63 miles, how many of those 63 miles is he getting 7 cents per mile on?
38.
There you go. So whatever that plus that is your answer. Now here's a spot where a calculator does help, I think. Let's see, that's 225. Yeah, calculator would help here. Plus 2 something, G's got to be the right answer. In other words, I can do this approximately in my head. That's also 2 and change. As long as that's 2 and change, and this is 225 because 9 quarters is $2.25, then the only answer can be G. About 19. read this?
That,
Verbalize that inequality for me.
absolute value of x is greater than the absolute value of y.
Okay, good. So what has to be true? First of all, does x have to be greater than 0?
No.
No, x could be negative. X could be negative 2, y could be negative 1. Okay, does x have to be less than y?
No.
Can x be equal to y?
No.
Does x have to be greater than y? Looking at D. Looking at E.
No.
Therefore, by process of elimination, D has to be our right answer. And does D make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if x was equal to y, then there's no way that would hold true. There's no way the absolute value of x could be greater than the absolute value of y. So the one thing we know is that x cannot be equal to y. All right, let's wrap it up there. And I'll make a note that we got through number 19 on this page. So the next time we go to do ACT, we'll know where to pick up. Okay?
All right.
All right, Mitch, I will talk to you next Tuesday at 4. You still doing golf?
All right. Yeah.
Golf's a spring sport in Colorado, isn't it?
No, it's a fall sport for boys, spring for girls.
Okay. Well, enjoy. Talk to you next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.